Today we are in my studio, also known as my craft room, and I'm going to be getting a little bit messy today. So basically today I just want to show you guys, I got this old canvas at Ons Winkel, which is a shop that I work for, so you'll be seeing a lot of videos from the shop, doing things from the shop and so on. And I genuinely think you guys should pop by and have a look. There are so many great things that you can do so much with. And I don't even have to say anything. Like, honestly, if you just saw the shop, you would know. So yeah, basically today I'm just going to show you. Now this is an already painted white canvas, but basically we get in several canvases that have paintings on them that aren't necessarily everyone's style, but since the canvases are so cheap, it's great to just paint over them. And in today's video I'm actually going to be showing you guys how to paint an abstract art piece on one of these canvases. So let's do that.
Okay, so over here I'm just taking a pair of scissors and cutting open a garbage bag to cover the table. So now I'm taking masking tape in different sizes and basically just taping off a few sections of the canvas which I want to keep white. This will make sense later. It just adds some dimension to the canvas. You want to add the masking tape in different directions just so you have more dimension. Now I'm choosing my paint colors. Basically I'm using a blue, a turquoise, a brown, and then black, white, and grey. These are basically the colors for my theme for today's canvas. Now I'm just taking off my jewelry so they don't get messed up and blowing up this bag, which will make sense later. I just used an Ons Winkel bag. You can get those by buying at the shop. Now I just have a bubble wrap piece, which will also make sense later. Just adding a few spots and strokes of paint onto the canvas and using one of those palette knives. The cheap plastic ones that you get at the Chinese shop work perfectly fine, which is what I'm using here. Now I'm just spreading the paint over the canvas. This helps a lot so that you don't waste paint essentially and you get more worth out of your paint, if that makes any sense. Now I'm just adding a few drops of white and spraying that over the black. The reason why I didn't let the black dry is because I want some shades of grey in between and different mixtures of the two combinations of paint. Now I'm starting to remove some of the masking tape to reveal some of the white canvas. And I'm adding a little bit of the colored paint tubes. Just a little bit goes a long way, guys. A few drops and you're perfectly fine. I'm spreading these in the opposite direction. Now I'm using a normal comb to get these cool lines on the canvas. In this little shooter glass thingy, I've got a little bit of water, add a bit of black paint. Now a little bit of water goes a long way, guys. Like, you need like a few drops because I'm going to splatter some black paint onto the canvas. Do be careful with this step as it gets super duper messy. Be careful not to mess on your clothes. Wear an apron or something to protect yourself from the paint. This splatters quite far, so do be careful with that. I'm basically using an old sellotape roll that I just taped the top to make this like circle where I splatter the paint. Here I'm just removing a few more of the masking tape strips to reveal more of the white. And by a few more, I mean all of the rest. Now I'm just using this little plate thingy just to put my paint on because I couldn't find anything else. So basically just use anything to put paint on. And then I'm just using that to dip in the shooter glasses rim to make a few of these cool little stamps, I'd say. I also have this line tool which I'm using to stamp some lines on here now. This is an all dried up paintbrush that makes these really cool paint strokes. So I'm also just using that to dip in the paint and add a few paint strokes. I let that dry, and now I'm adding a few more masking tape strips so we can add more color and essentially give it more dimension. Now I'm going to add some white on top of that to contrast with the darker colors underneath. And once again, just spread it over the canvas as far as possible. But now, as you will see just in a second, I'm using the bag to spread the paint a little bit more. I'm using it basically as a stamping tool to spread the paint, just so it distributes a little bit better and that it's more flat on the canvas. Now I'm adding what seems to be black, I think. Yes, that is black. And once again, spreading it over the white to create these cool paint strokes. Now I'm adding brown. I added the brown onto the tape and then spread it from there using the bag so that there would be slight little specks of brown and also turquoise, but not like strokes of the color, if that makes sense. Now I'm just removing the tape again so you can see the sectioned off blocks that I've just added to the canvas. Doing a painting like this involves painting over several layers of paint and covering up and redoing things, and it's a process, and it creates more depth the further you go. Now I'm just spreading some black paint onto bubble wrap and stamping that onto the canvas. This is such a fun technique which adds so much to the canvas. Once again, as you would have expected, adding masking tape. The masking tape essentially covers what you've done so far. So the spaces you leave open are the spaces that you're not that crazy about. So you want to cover the spaces that you really like. Now I'm just spreading some white paint using another palette knife tool. I use different ones just so that the paint doesn't mix. Like for here, I wanted to have it as white as possible. I've just scraped off the rest of the paint off the palette knife and put it on the canvas. Here I'm using that comb again to add some textured lines and removing that masking tape again. Now, once again, I'm taping off even more of the canvas. You guys must think I'm crazy by now. It's a process. Trust the process. You'll see in the end. Now I'm just adding this very dark gray that I think it's called Payne's gray or something like that. I'm not sure. And I'm spraying that into the block which I've taped off. This might not make sense to you guys as I'm covering a lot of the paint that I've done, but in the end you'll see it makes sense to me at least. Here I'm just adding a little bit more of the masking tape to make a few smaller squares off center. Once again adding some of that Payne's grey and scraping that onto the canvas to fill the squares. This helps a lot as you're not using a brush or a sponge which sucks up the paint, leaving you with little results for a lot of paint. Now I'm just kind of like dabbing the palette knife on there to give it a little bit of texture, and I added black to this part of the corner to give it a little bit of like a shadow effect. Now I'm using an old sellotape roll and dipping it in some white paint and stamping some rings onto the canvas. I'm also adding a little bit of white paint onto the bubble wrap and just making a few bubble wrap lines. I also went through the blocks so that I could get some dark bubble wrap textures as well. Now this is an old tube of paint which has very little paint left. I added like a few drops of water to it to get the splatter effect, so don't throw away your old paint tubes, use it for such textures and things. I really enjoy doing that, and it just adds such a cool effect. Now I'm just painting the edges black, as this is standard practice for me. I like painting my edges black. I don't like carrying on the pattern to the edges. I think the black just looks nice and sleek. I'm using a sponge just to spread it a bit better. I'm dabbing it on there so that I don't have to use a lot of paint. As you guys can see, I just like basically stipple the black paint onto the canvas edge. And there you have it.
So this is how it turned out, and I am loving it. As you can see, we've got little bubble wrap marks, the splatters, those comb strokes, and the imprints and everything. And every little bit adds so much detail to it. I'm so happy with it. So there you guys have it. That was today's video. Now this video literally placed over 3 days, and for you guys it might not be that long, but for me this was long, thanks to Eskom. But anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to see more DIYs using thrifted items, please do stay tuned and subscribe to the channel. Please pop in by the store, get yourself a canvas, do this DIY, and if you do this DIY, post it on your Instagram story and at Ons Winkel. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. You must have a lovely, wonderful day.